Welcome to Leading Life and Leading People. My name is Rachel Cannon, and I'm an organizational development and HR practitioner and consultant who works to help individuals and organizations unlock more energy and capacity to do good and work together to meet needs. But being a mom, a nerd, an athlete, a friend, and a member of various communities, I've come to know that everyone can be a leader. Leadership is about bringing together the strengths and potential we all have as human beings and doing the work to sustain and grow the energy and capacity of everyone involved. Whether that's you as a leader in your own life or you as a leader in family, with friends, community, or in the workplace, you can have a role to play in bringing life to your circle of the world. There's so much we can do together. Have you ever been in a place where it feels like you're spinning your wheels and you can't seem to gain traction and making progress? Or maybe where you feel like you're in the middle of a whirlwind and you're running as fast as you can, but you're not sure that you're actually going anywhere. Or maybe you're a leader who keeps pushing and motivating their team to progress, but it seems like the team just spins its wheels and can't solve problems. Many individuals, organizations, or teams find themselves at one point or another in a state of spin, right? This is when we sit there and our wheels feel like they're spinning and we're trying hard. We're putting in lots of effort with no progress. We have sustained paralysis and an inability to solve problems. Or maybe simply we're staying in neutral. We have disengagement from team members. So if we've all been there, how do we recognize that we're headed for spin, and how do we gain traction? So spin can be characterized by symptoms related to three areas: who we are, where we're going, and how we get there, which is strategy and problem solving, and the energy to get there, which is your level of productivity and engagement. These three areas arise from the science of hope and progress in positive psychology, and they tie into a lot of the traditional dialogues around creating business strategy. You've heard lots of people talk about purpose and values and meaning and plan and strategy. But in individuals also, and us as people, hope is a cognitive process that also consists of, first, having meaningful goals based on our strengths. Second, the ability to set strategy to progress towards those goals and to adjust as circumstances change and problems arise. And then third is people maintaining the energy and capability to do the work and building in the necessary recovery and renewal time. So in organizations, this process of organizational hope or traction is the ability to keep making progress. So the absence of this traction or the struggle to build traction is spin. So let's look at the symptoms of spin that can arise in each one of those areas. Let's think first about who we are and where we're going. A lot of the challenges around who we are and where we're going arise when we're not really clear on our individual goals and how they all align. You might have various teams who just prioritize their own goals. They don't all row in the same direction. Or you might have leadership who communicates goals and objectives, but individual employees don't really see how their work connects or don't really seem motivated to reach those goals. You might also have individuals who don't have a clear data or way to measure their own progress towards those goals. There's also symptoms of spin that can happen in how we get there, in strategy and problem solving. So, for example, we could be executing the strategy, but it doesn't seem to be accomplishing our vision. Or there could be too many priorities or conflicting priorities without a clear definition of how they work together. A lot of times employees and teams bounce from one priority to another, and they end up feeling helpless. They feeling like they're trying to do too many things at once. Sometimes we create a new flavor of the month strategy or priority that doesn't seem to have a real impact on behaviors or progress. Sometimes we just relabel things, give it a new name, but it's really the same old process and behaviors. We might create lots of meetings or processes to control work in the right direction, but those meetings or processes struggle to solve problems. Or we might have teams engaging in blaming rather than seeing every group as part of the same system. There's a lot of symptoms of spin that also come out in the energy to get there. And this is one that we don't always pay attention to. But you might see leaders engaging in blaming or shaming behaviors to try to prompt motivation. We assume that because people aren't doing it, they just don't think that it's important enough. You might see leaders taking the workload or control on themselves because they think that's the only way to get it done. You also might see individuals and teams who don't deliver on their goals without an obvious reason why. We might also see that level of effort required to progress towards the goals can't be sustained. A lot of times we see leaders trying to drive their teams to maximum effort every minute of every day, and that's just not sustainable. So, what do we do when we recognize spin? What can leaders do to grow traction in their organization? Well, we can think of the role of leaders in influencing both systems, teams, and individuals. So let's talk about what leaders can do in all three of those areas. So, first, from a systems perspective, some of the most important things that a leader can do are both internal, meaning working on their own behaviors, and external, directing work within the organization. A leader can make sure that they are directing work by having a unified vision that is directly tied to each team's goal. Identify what is the core work of the business or the team. Have we clarified what our real top priorities are? And that's one or two or three priorities. It's not 20. What are the strengths of each team or individual? And how do they contribute to that core work? Every team should know their role in achieving the core work. Do the goals of each individual and team have clear ways to measure progress? Keep everyone moving towards the core work of the business. Another thing that leaders can do when they have a unified vision is to make sure that they are clarifying consistently what that core work is. It's really common for top leaders of the organization to set multiple priorities for each function or team member, but not really clarify how all those priorities work together to move forward the core work of the business. There will always be conflicts and trade-offs that arise in the course of moving towards the vision. And one of the core roles of a leader is to do the work to clarify what is the priority to guide future problem-solving conversations. Within that system, the leaders also can work on their own behaviors that support moving people in the same direction. And patience and consistency is a key for leaders to evolve the systems that support the core work. Often leaders become frustrated with various parts of how the current systems and processes are working, and they start from scratch, or they relaunch systems and processes with new names, new focuses in an attempt to create motivation. But frequent changes in systems produce a confusion in teams and individuals of what's really important. And it also doesn't allow them time to learn how to optimize their efforts in the system they already have. Frequent change can also produce learned helplessness and disengagement, including behaviors where individuals simply continue to behave as they did before within the new system. They say, "This changes all the time. I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing because I can't keep bouncing from one thing to another." People need time and consistency in order to integrate changes, not only in processes they use, but in the behaviors that those processes are trying to facilitate. Leaders often give up and change processes, hoping for new behaviors, rather than working with teams to learn new behaviors inside a consistent process. People really only have so much capacity for change at a given time. So the question as a leader is, will we use it to learn a new process or to practice new behaviors within the process? Another important behavior for leaders is to take time for humility and for clarity. Sometimes, as a leader, we set a strategy that doesn't end up producing the results we want. For some reason, something happens in the environment, some new circumstance or disruptive event happens. Be willing to take time as a leader to examine the path you're on with humility. And that doesn't mean throw it all out, but be willing to ask your team what's working and what's not, and to adjust the parts of the strategy that need to be adjusted. Involving the organization in those adjustments will help bring everybody on board without throwing out what the core work of the business is. Again, if people feel like you're just jumping from one thing to another, they eventually learn to just stay with the same thing that they've always done. So leaders can do a lot in driving the core work of the business and in monitoring their own behaviors and how they drive that core work. But there's also a role of leaders with teams and with individuals. Think about this. As a leader, your behaviors also affect individuals' engagement and energy and capacity to do work. So what can you do as a leader? Well, in your own behaviors, first, you can be willing to grow. The principal source of growth as a leader is likely going to be learning from individuals in your team. Learn about their strengths, how you can best facilitate their progress in that core work. One of the greatest things that you can do is also letting go of control. Leading based on control is a common cause of spin. And a control orientation focuses responsibility for all progress that's made on you as a leader. And you simply can't do as much as a team who are all working in the same direction can do. Control seems a lot easier in the moment, but it produces spin as the attention and priorities of you as the leader might shift. It makes pleasing the leader, you as the leader, the core work of the team, rather than really contributing to the core work of the business. The other big thing that you can do as you relate and work with people and individuals is internalizing behaviors and changes in behaviors with yourself first. A lot of leaders will learn of a great new business or leadership idea, and they move immediately to creating a new system or a process to teach everyone in their organization this idea. Again, that creates spin as teams and individuals feel subject to the changing whims of leaders. And it often skips over learning the new behaviors associated with that idea. So if you internalized your learning first and you change your own behaviors, if you change what you pay attention to and react to, then your teams will begin to observe and begin to adjust behaviors as well. So you don't have to label everything new. You don't have to create a new process. You don't have to create a new campaign. All you need to do is adjust your behaviors. Adjust the way that you pay attention to, react to, and manage things, and the organization will shift. A couple of other key things that leaders can do is how they focus on the work with individuals and teams. Your role as a leader includes focusing on facilitating the team's progress and monitoring energy levels. One of your key roles is to problem solve conflicts of priority or questions of strategy. Pay attention to what the team needs in order to gain traction and facilitate getting what they need. But also don't employ shame or blame to try to prompt movement. Shame and blame is a tool that we turn to a lot to try to get people to do something. But they destroy trust and they lead individuals and teams to then prioritize protecting themselves over moving in a unified direction. As a leader, an important thing that you need to do is also monitor energy levels. If teams are dragging, get curious and find out why. If they're struggling to sustain energy levels, ask them what they need to come back with more energy. Be willing to provide space for taking a step back, for recovery or renewal of engagement. The core work of a business is always done as individuals who are human. And as humans, recovery and recharge is part of what we need. Taking time to pause will produce greater capacity for progress as you move forward. In the end, all of these things as leaders are about remembering that you are human. Your teams are human, and you will encounter spin. Spin is part of what happens. That doesn't mean you failed or you aren't good enough. It does mean that something needs to be adjusted. So as a leader, continue to examine and be conscious of whether you are creating spin or traction in who you are, where you're going, understanding the core work and moving people in the same direction, having a clear idea of how you're going to get there with strategy and problem solving, helping people to resolve conflicts, and also monitoring and engaging and supporting your team and organization and having the energy to get there. You will encounter spin, but you also have lots of tools to help you gain traction again. So think about where you most encounter spin. What are your typical reactions as a leader? Let me know how it goes. What do you discover as you try it out? And join us next time as we keep talking about leading life and leading people.